Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Belladonna of Sadness, the final film of the Anime-Rama trilogy. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the Anime-Rama trilogy, it was a project set up by Osamu Tezuka to bring adult animation to the masses, to prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that animation could be enjoyed by adults as well as children. But after the box office bomb that was Cleopatra, the second film of the trilogy, Osamu Tezuka distanced himself from the project, and instead Eiichi Yamamoto, the director of 1001 Nights and the co-director of Cleopatra, had full reign on this film. There was quite a delay of the release of this film, by the way. The first film, 1001 Nights, came out in 1969 and Cleopatra came out in 1970. This film didn't come out until 1973, and when it came out, Mushi Production was on the verge of bankruptcy, which impacted its development. So let's get started with the story. So what is the story of Belladonna of Sadness? Belladonna of Sadness is set in medieval Europe, France specifically, and in a village we see these two peasants, Jean and Jean, get married. They go to their lord and they try to pay their marriage tax. They've sold their cow and they offer the lord the money. The lord demands 10 cows worth of money, which they cannot pay, and so the lord enacts his right of, I believe it's called droit du seigneur, which is where a lord may bed a woman on her wedding night. This was made famous by Braveheart. If you've seen that film, you'll be familiar with the concept. Jean is kicked out of the castle, and Jean is raped by the lord, and not only the lord, actually, his entourage as well. And she's sent back in shame to her husband. With the husband, at first, he tries to get over it. He says, we'll put this all behind us. But he finds himself blaming her rather than the perpetrators, which was the lord and his entourage. And he begins to strangle her. And when he realizes what he's doing, he flees from her, afraid of what he'll do. Jean is then visited by a spirit. This spirit, she asks if he's the devil, and the spirit gives a kind of an ambiguous answer to that. And the spirit offers her power, offers her magic, which she accepts, and that's how the film begins. As you might have gathered from that plot summary, this is a much darker film than the first two films. When I heard the blurb for this film, I expected it to be a revenge film. I thought she'd use her newfound powers to get vengeance on the lord and his entourage, but instead, what we find is a film that is more about the struggles of a woman in medieval society in an effort to survive. Any woman who is successful is accused of witchcraft and is persecuted. The tone of this film is very dark. It's very starkly contrasted to the first two films. The first two films were very comedic. This film, maybe there's like one or two moments of comic relief, but in general this movie is very serious, and the themes it tackles are very harsh. And when I watched this film, I had a bit of a whiplash moment. I watched 1001 Nights on a Friday, I watched Cleopatra on a Saturday, and then I watched this on a Sunday. The change between them is unbelievable. But oddly enough, this film is the best, as far as I'm concerned. I think this is the best film of the Anime-Rama trilogy, and it's because there's no filler in this. In contrast to the first two films, where I felt there was a lot of moments that could easily have been taken out, this film is the perfect length. It's very well written. The characters are very engaging. In particular, Jean. Jean is a very engaging main character, and we really do empathize with her, and we want to see her succeed against this society who wants her to fail. The animation of this film, the art style of this film, I should say, is what a lot of people think of when they think of this film. This film is very much watercolor, and this film, I have to say, is one of the most beautiful animated films I have ever seen. Like, the art style for this film is unbelievably good. But I did mention before, didn't I, that Mushi Production was on the verge of bankruptcy, and that did impact this film. There's very little animation in this film. A lot of what we see are still images, using pans to kind of cover up the fact that there's very little animation. The characters' lips don't even move when they speak. However, I have to say that the cinematography of this film is outstanding. The way they incorporate the pans is unbelievably amazing, where it might go to a crowd and it'll go to then the happy couple, or it'll go up from the happy couple up to the priest who is marrying them. The way that the pans are used are absolutely superb, and it quite often makes you forget that this film is lacking so much animation. It is obviously a shame that there isn't as much animation in this as there could have been. I would have loved to have seen that, but for what the film is, it handles that extremely well, and that doesn't take away from the fact that this film is a visual treat. Speaking of the animation and the story, by the way, I should say that the sexual content of this film is very strong, and whereas the first two films had a lot of strong sexual content, usually the sexual content in those films were played kind of comedically, also to kind of titillate the audience a bit. There's only one scene I can think of from 1001 Nights where sex was kind of seen as an ugly, bad thing. In contrast, there's a lot of sexual content in this film, and is portrayed as ugly, disgusting, vile. There's no titillation for the audience. It is very well done. It's sharp contrast to the beautiful artwork, and I have to say that there's nothing gratuitous in this film, which is more than you can say for Cleopatra. The music was done by a different composer. Isao Tomita was the one who did 1001 Nights and Cleopatra. In contrast, Masahiko Saito was the composer for this film. Even though he was a jazz musician as well, a jazz composer, his soundtrack is very different to Isao Tomita, to the extent that I feel like it's more blues than jazz music, which again suits the tone of this film perfectly. The soundtracks for the first two films would not have suited this film at all. The soundtrack for this film is exceptionally good and suits the film down to the ground, and I think it's a perfect fit. The voice cast is Japanese only. There's no English dub of this film, but the Japanese cast is exceptional, but very different to the performances given in the first two films. In the first two films, because of the over-the-top kind of nature of those films, the voices were slightly exaggerated, which again suited those films very well. However, given how serious and dark this film is, the performances are more restrained and more subtle, and they are absolutely fantastic. The cast did an exceptional job in this film. With regards to the release, so in America this was released by a company called Cinelicious. The edition I have here is the version released by Anime Limited in UK and Ireland. I believe, as far as I'm aware, that they share pretty much all of their extras, but just to reiterate, this is the Anime Limited version and this is the version I'm going to be reviewing. So first of all, on the disc you have about an hour of extras with new interviews with the director Eiichi Yamamoto, the art director Kuni Hukai, and the music, as I said, Masahiko Saito, and all together they add up to over an hour, and there's a lot of great information. In addition, we have some trailers, the red band and I believe the term is green band trailers for the American release, as well as the original 1973 trailer for when it was released in Japan. Alongside that, we have a booklet here, which is a 16-page booklet, about 9 pages of which have writing on it. The other pages are more about artwork. But again, this is an exceptionally good little booklet. There's a lot of information in here. It's great. And then, as far as I'm aware, this is the only difference between the American release by Cinelicious and the Anime Limited release, and that is some art cards showing art from the film. Now, there's 6 art cards in total, but I'm only able to show you 4 of them because the other 2 have content that could be considered too explicit for YouTube. But as you can see, the artwork is exceptional here, and these art cards are very nice, and they're a very nice little addition to the package. So overall, what do I think of Belladonna of Sadness? I think it is an exceptional film. It is a very dark film, and some people who might have liked the kind of light-hearted nature of the first 2 films of the Anime Rama trilogy might have some problems here. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that it is, as far as I'm concerned, the best of the trilogy, the best written, the deepest. There's just so much that I can say about this film that is excellent. And I do strongly recommend it to not only fans of anime, but fans of animation. I think pretty much everyone has to see this, as long as you can handle the very strong content present in this film. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.